You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read, and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
Hello, Dear Texas Radio listeners. I am your host, Denise Bryson. Welcome to our show today. And today, our guest, we have the privilege of interviewing Janet Sever Hull. And she is the author of The Button Box, and Which Came First, and then her new book, The Day the Turkey Came to School. So we are excited. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Denise. I'm delighted to be on Dear Texas Radio with you, and thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, you are so welcome. It is our pleasure to have you on the program. And so we want to hear about these books, these beautiful children's books with these beautiful illustrations. And I'm telling you, so it's just beautiful to see. And so we're gonna start with now, have you already released? Because I know this is a new book. So has it been released the day the turkey came to school?
Yes, it came out on September 1st, so about 3 weeks ago, and it seems to be doing pretty well.
Oh, that's good. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, The Day the Turkey Came to School is a story I wrote about something that happened in the early 2000s with my daughter, Anna. I was driving her to school one day, and as we tried to turn into the elementary school parking lot, there was a giant turkey blocking the drive. And, of course, it caused all kinds of excitement and commotion, and everybody was trying to figure out what a turkey was doing in the school drive. And it was in November, which was very appropriate, I thought. And everyone started getting out of their cars to see what was going on and then visiting with one another. And it turned into a social event, and everybody just kind of stopped from their busy lives and reconnected with their friends.
Oh, wow. And that's how the book was born.
And that's how the book was born. And then I just wrote, the rest of the story as I imagined it.
That is awesome. Now, let me digress and tell me a little bit about yourself. I know that you are from Elkhart, Indiana. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. So we have some similarity there. We're from Indiana.
Oh, a fellow Hoosier.
Yes. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start writing?
Oh, sure, you bet. Well, I grew up in Indiana and graduated from Purdue University and lived in the Midwest for most of my life. But I started writing at the age of 16 after taking a mission trip to Haiti with my church group. And I got back from the mission trip in August, right before I started high school, and my high school English teacher asked me to write about my mission trip. And I loved telling the stories about what happened during our time in Haiti. And once that was written and published in the school magazine, she asked me to keep writing, and I've been writing ever since. So I started at the age of 16.
Oh, wow. And did you write things while you were in high school? Like, did you write different passages or short stories while you were in high school as well? And did you just write for your classes?
Well, I actually ended up writing for the school news magazine the whole time that I was in high school. I wrote news briefs, feature articles, and then I had an article. I was privileged to win a nationwide writing contest for high school students, and a story about a friend of mine called From Tennis Team to Wheelchair Life won first place in a contest by the Scholastic Press Association through Columbia University. And so that was a huge honor as a 17-year-old to win that. And my article was published in the magazine, and then I went on to school and wrote for my college newspaper.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
The Purdue Exponent, let me just say.
The Purdue Exponent, is that what it was called?
Yes, I was a staff writer.
Oh, that is awesome. So then that brings us to your next story. Now where can we find the turkey? The day the turkey came to school. So I know it'll be on the TexasAuthors.com, but is it on any of the other sites as well right now, or is it on your website
right
only?
Right now, you can find it in stores around the Metroplex, in selected stores, and as well as on my author website at janetseverhull.com.
Okay.
And I hope to be shipping to other stores in the next few weeks.
Okay. Well, it'll be good to read that story. I didn't get a chance to look into that one because I didn't see it. But anyway, I thank God. I mean, I'm thankful to be able to talk about that. When the day the turkey came to school, I can only imagine that is such a cute story. Now, what about the button box? I'm thinking the button box is not only for children, but it seems like a wonderful story for mothers and grandmothers as well to share with their children. And so it just seemed like something that you would do at family for memories and memoirs and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit about the button box and how that came about?
Absolutely. I would love to tell you about the button box. For many years, I wrote, but I didn't share my one. About 4 years ago at Christmas time, my adult son came to me and said, "Mom, you've been writing all of these stories for years. We share them with family, and we think it's time you did something more with them." And so I thought about their words, and after Christmas, I thought, well, maybe I'll take my story, The Button Box, which button box, surrounding it and stories around it, and turn it into a book. And as you said, it's for all ages. I originally published it as a children's book, but it sells to adults as much as it does for other adults as it does for children, because it's kind of a timeless story. Are you familiar with what a button box is?
No, could you tell us about it? I think I am, but I wonder, does our listening audience, are they really aware of what a button box is? Because I think I know what it is. I'll say that.
Okay. Well, many people still have them. Years ago, before there was a store on every corner, when people made their own clothing, every family had a button box, and they would from worn-out clothing and put them in the button box. It was kind of an early form of recycling. And then when they would make new clothes for family members, they pulled from the button box to put on the new clothing. And the button box that was passed down through our family has been passed down through 3 or 4 generations, and just is very special to me. And so, and when I was a child and would play with the buttons in the button box, my mother would say, "These buttons in our button box are like the people you're going to meet in this world. They come in all different sizes and shapes and colors, and some are more interesting than others, but each one is important and each one deserves your respect." And that's the message that, she taught my brothers and me through the button box. And if I, in turn, then pass that down to my own children.
That is that's an awesome story, because I remember having a button box, my mom having a button box too. As a matter of fact, I think I still have the button box because I have a lot of buttons that I brought when I moved here, and it's in a button box, and so I think I just took it after she passed on. That was one of the things I took along with me as we went. So that's such an interesting story. But I loved what you said. Your mom said that meant those buttons meant like that those were people that you would meet along the way. That is such an interesting topic and something that's really great to pass down to children.
Well, you know, I even have had people buy this book for high school graduates to send along with their graduates as they go off out into the world. Because those are the kind of memories I don't think people really think about anymore, but you're just creating those types of things as you go along in your own journey of life. To me, I kind of took that meaning for it. Yes, exactly. My books, there's a kernel of truth or of something from my past. You know, they're based on true stories. And so many of these things, you know, family button boxes and family farms, like in my second book, which came first, aren't as common these days. And I wanted to write about these things that I grew up around so that my children and my grandchildren's generation could know about them as well. Yes, yes. And those are the things that make it so interesting in life, because if we don't have those types of things passed down from generation to generation, sometimes those things get lost. And what that generation coming along years and years and years from now would be probably, it would just, to me, when I saw things like that come from my grandmother, it just warmed my heart. Yes, and that's what I hear a lot about my books, that it makes people think of their grandparents and their mothers and things from their past that they have remembered, and that just make them feel good to think about. The other motivation for me behind my books is I have 3 adult children, and I did a lot of reading to kids when they were growing up. So, and I knew as a parent that there were certain kinds of books that I really enjoyed reading, and there were other kinds of books that somehow got lost sometimes because Mom was so tired of reading them. But I tried to write books that parents and grandparents would enjoy reading. Or reading, to children. And one thing that I do with my books, and I also want to mention my illustrator, Vicki Killian-Guest. She is Texas. But wait a minute, hold on just a minute. Jen, hold on just a minute. We're going to come back with that, because we're going to take a short break, and then we'll hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back, and then we'll talk about your illustrator and finish the thoughts about the book, and then we'll go into the next one. Okay, sounds perfect.
Brakefield and Berkey, 2017 award-winning authors of the Enigma series techno-thrillers, have released their first book in Audible format. The Enigma Factor is the foundational story for the series' ongoing battles against cyber assassins using technology, today's weapon of choice. Explore the digital threats of fighting for lost identity, struggling with mutant computer viruses, or commodity market manipulation. EnigmaSeries.com reveals the intrigue and intelligence of digital combat in our 21st century. Available in paperback, ebook, and now Audible format. Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network. Hello, Texas authors. My name is Randy James, coming to you from my Carrollton recording studio, where I spend time writing and producing commercials for my radio endorsement clients, as well as my private freelance clients. I'd like the opportunity to help you sell more books with a commercial like this and get listeners of Dear Texas Radio excited about your title, all at a special introductory price, available to members of the Texas Association of Authors. Call or text 214-762-1942. That's 214-762-1942. Texas Authors is accepting entries into their 6th annual book contest. Go to books.txauthors.com and sign up. Contest is valid for Texas authors only and is open to anyone 18 years of age and older who published a book during the 2017 calendar year. Enter at books.txauthors.com today. Attention students in grades 6 through 12. Do you love to write? Texas Authors Institute of History is kicking off its first statewide short story contest for students. It's free to enter and a great way to begin your career in writing. Sign up at shortstory.texasauthors.institute for complete rules. Again, to enter, go to shortstory.texasauthors.institute. You can win cash prizes and an opportunity to be published. You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
Hello, Dear Texas Radio. We are back. This is your host, Denise Bryson, and I am having the wonderful pleasure of interviewing our author, Janet Sever Hull. And she was at the close of our first segment, she was getting ready to tell us about the wonderful illustrator, Vicki Killian Guest. Did I get that right? Am I close?
Yes, you sure did. Vicki Guest is also from Texas. She is an art teacher in Grapevine. And when she's not teaching school, she illustrates books. And she has illustrated all three of my books, and we have had all kinds of fun working together. She paints in acrylic paints all of the pictures, and they are just delightful.
Oh, wow, beautiful, beautiful. And so she's kind of been on with you on every book, and even on your new one, The Day the Turkey Came to School, she is your illustrator as well on that one, too.
Yes, she is. After we worked on the button box together, and it takes us about a year for each book, I pitched her two stories. One was Which Came First, and one was The Day the Turkey Came to School. And I said, why don't you choose which one you'd like to illustrate next? And she chose Which Came First. She decided to do the chickens. And so at one point, we were sitting at a book signing, and someone said, oh, so you have a book about buttons and one about chickens and now one about a turkey. You're kind of going in a foul direction.
That's what all I could have said to that was,
But one thing about, I was saying earlier that I try to write books that parents and grandparents enjoy reading. One of the things our books are known for is we have a story, and then after the story, we have a factual section in the back. And so at the end of the button box, there's a short history of buttons. At the end of Which Came First, which is about gathering eggs on grandmother's farm, there are fun facts about chickens and funny chicken sayings. And then at the end of The Day the Turkey Came to School, we have turkey trivia.
Oh, my goodness. I bet that is really good and such a teaching lesson, yes.
Yeah, so there's some new things that children can learn about at the end of the story. So hopefully they're entertained by the story, and then they enjoy learning some new things, too.
Well, with that being said, let us talk about which came first. Because I've thought about, I read one of the reviews, and the lady said, I can just hear my grandson hollering, chicken liver, and calling somebody chicken liver. So tell me a little bit about Which Came First. It's a very interesting story about how to conquer fear and to not let your fears get the best of you. So could you tell us a little bit about that story and how this 9-year-old overcame her fear with the chickens?
Well, Which Came First is based on a true story that really happened on my grandparents' farm when I was a little girl. My grandmother believed that you overcame your fear by facing your fears. And she told me this one day that my chore was to go and gather the eggs. And she knew that I was afraid of the chickens and the rooster named Pretty Boy. And she said, you can do this. Take the egg basket, come back with eggs. And this is what the story's about, this little girl's journey to the chicken coop and all the things that happened and how she tried to get out of it and to tell herself not to be a chicken liver, don't be a chicken liver. And she comes up with a very clever and resourceful way to gather the eggs so she doesn't disappoint her grandmother. But another part of the story is it's about the love between grandparents and grandchildren.
Mhm. And it was just so interesting to hear because how the grandmother, she was firm, but she did it in a loving way is what she was doing.
Exactly. She was trying to teach her granddaughter not to give up but to still face her fears and to let her know that she was supporting her, that she knew she could do this task that was in front of her.
And what's so interesting about that as well, like you said, it's a children's book, but as the adult is reading it to the children, they can learn from it as well, how to overcome their fears, because it's amazing that, we get to be adults and we still got some fears about some things. And so it's just an interesting lesson for it kind of transcends across age brackets. It's for children, but still some adults can gain from the experience of reading it as well. And so when they read it to their children, they can learn some things too.
And that's what I've heard from parents and grandparents who have read my book to the children in their lives, that a lot of times there are pretty good discussions about some of the subjects in the book. So I love hearing that. Anything that inspires parents and children and grandparents and children to spend more time talking together, I think is a wonderful thing. And if the book is the reason, how wonderful is that?
Mhm. That is wonderful, and that's what that's what you want them to do is to it's a good family gathering time, so they can talk about it and share and things like that, and the parents can tell while the kids say, well, I'm afraid of this. Well, the parent could say, well, I overcame this fear just like the young lady in the book did, and and they can have a good discussion about that. So I think that's really good, and I think that promotes family time and things like that. And so that's such an awesome result of the book. I'll say that.
Yes, we live in such a technological world now, yet I don't think anything can take the place of time with children and books. It's just such a special time together.
Yeah. So now, what are your plans going forward? Are you getting, since the next book has come out, are you all starting on something else? Do you have something else in the works that is coming along?
Well, I have a couple of stories that are partially written, and Vicki and I have a meeting scheduled in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about what we'd like to work on next. So that remains to be seen.
Mhm. It's just awesome to have a partner. You know what I'm saying? That you have this. Because with the genre of books that you write, children are very visual, and it helps them to learn when they can see what you're reading to them. And so just to have that partner that does the other side of it, and you come together and then figure out which way to go. So then when she says, well, I think I would like to illustrate that, then you can say, okay, well, I'm getting ready to write this.
Well, you are exactly right. I did not realize how much fun it would be to work with an illustrator, but we have just become the closest of friends, and it's a perk to doing all of this kind of work that I did not see coming. I just feel very blessed. That's
good. That is awesome. Now, what about what what do you? Is there anything that you find particularly challenging when you're writing children's books? What is the challenge of writing a children's book? I guess is what I think because a lot of people sometimes fear doing it because they like, well, is it going to, how is it going to come out? So what are some of the challenges that you think there are to writing children's books?
Obviously you want to keep the book interesting, the story interesting to children, and keep it moving along. Here is my number one tip for all the writers out there who might want to write for children. Write your story and then read it out loud. Mm-hmm. Because reading it out loud really tells whether or not it's going to flow, whether or not the words make sense together. And that's something that I always do when I'm writing a children's book. And I also test it on any kids I can find, too.
Do you get to do any, go to school and do any kind of presentations in the school system or anything like that? Have you done that before?
Oh, my, yes. I have. And that is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I've read also, the first two books. I have not done any schools yet with The Day the Turkey Came to School, and I'm really looking forward to that. But with The Button Box and Which Came First, I've read at schools, and it's really fun to hear what the kids have to say. When I was reading Which Came First at a school one time, a little girl raised her hand, and she said, well, did you bring your chickens with you, too? And so that was fun. And then when I would read The Button Box, when that first came out, and that was the only book I had, I was a little nervous that, something like a button box and buttons would not be interesting to the children of today because they're used to technology and video games and all of these very fast-paced things. But what I found was it was very interesting to them to find that before plastic was invented in the early 1900s, that the buttons on our clothing were made from natural resources. And when I do read the book at school, I take a board and I show them buttons made out of bone and shells, seashells, and coconuts, and horns and antlers and just any wood and leather, all kinds of natural resources. And children are just very intrigued by that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Janet, now before we go, could you tell us where people can get in touch with you on social media and things like that? We know that we can buy your books on TexasAuthors.com, and so, but where can they reach you on the media sites and things like that? Could you give us that information? Because we are winding up. It goes so quick.
Okay.
We thank you so much for your interview today, and just talking with you has been such a pleasure. So could you give us that information?
Sure. You can find my books at janetseverhull.com. You can also check out my weekly blog at walkdownthelane.com about all the things that make life interesting and funny and fun. And I'm on Twitter at Janet Sever Hull. I'm on Facebook. And I'd love to hear from people.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Janet, for being our guest on the show today. And we encourage our listeners to support our authors by purchasing their books and enjoy the journey it will take you on. And I want you to have a good evening. And this has been Dear Texas Radio, and we encourage all of Texas to drop everything and read. And we have been with our author, Janet Sever Hull. Go buy her books. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage everyone to drop everything and read a great book by a Texas author. More information about this show or any of our shows from the past years can be found at radio.deartexas.info. That's radio.deartexas.info. I'm Randy James, your announcer for Dear Texas Radio.